Greetings and blessings, my brothers and sisters in Christ. My name is Robert. I am the host of the I Am Matthew podcast, where we talk about walking out our Christian faith and trying to be in the world, but not of the world. Hey, I want to ask you to do something right quick. If you really enjoy this podcast, will you do me a couple favors? Will you share it with everyone that you know that you think that could use this message of hope? Also, follow us on Spotify and Apple, because by doing that, you're actually sharing this message with other people in those areas, and more people will get the chance to see, possibly listen to, and receive the message for them. Also, another thing that you could do for us is to start following the I Am Matthew Ministry social media pages. Again, we want to get this word out there to whomever it is for. But guys, I'm thankful that you're sitting here right now listening to this podcast, and I want to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I really want to tell you guys is that the website is up. Okay, and now again, the website's up. It's no longer a coming soon page. It's the actual website. It still has a little bit of tweaking. It may get an overhaul, but right now I just wanted something that I feel like really projects the ministry, and right now it looks so good. My wife spent a lot of time on it. I tweaked a couple things here and there. Some people had some comments, and we got some things fixed, but I think for the most part, this looks really good. Now, like I said, I might be talking to a guy that works on websites, and he may completely overhaul this thing, so it may look completely different, but it's at least it's up. Again, like I said during the intro, I just want to repeat myself because I feel like this is important. And again, this is not about me. This is about Christ. This is about sharing the message of Christ. You know, there is a lot of people out there that get a message each and every Sunday that you can really apply to yourself. But I want you to stop and think about the message that I give. The message that I give is one from a very different perspective than most people. Okay? And there's not a lot of people, and there may be people out there that don't get that kind of message on Sunday. And so what I would really like you to partner with me in is I would like you to just, again, share on Spotify and Apple, or follow us on Spotify and Apple, because by doing that, what you're actually doing is you're actually you're basically saying, hey, this podcast is worth other people's time, and then they come and they listen and they get blessed by it. And then the next thing that I want you to do is I would like you to start following us on your favorite social. I'm not asking you to follow on all of them. I know we have a lot of them, and maybe your favorite social media, I haven't started doing anything yet. And don't worry. Like I said, all of this stuff is just starting to build up. We're starting to get it out there, but I'm not just going to leave it in the shadows, because I'd hate for you to stumble across and be like, well, I didn't even talk about this. I want to talk about this. But I want you to know that it's not really getting utilized like it should. Now, in January 2025 is where I think a lot of things are going to ramp up. We're going to have our first board meeting, and the expectations of the board members and myself is really going to get put into a mindset. We're going to start pushing things forward. That's when we're going to start doing the 501(c). That's when we're really going to push the GoFundMe. That's when we're really going to start doing more of the social media presence, okay? So I want you to bear with me in this brief ramping up period. You're starting to see some messages here on, I think, mainly Facebook, but we're going to get them in other places. You started with a coming soon page, and now you've got an actual kind of big page where you can kind of really dig into the bare bones about it and share this stuff. I'd really like, just because our social media isn't sharing anything, share it. Just tell people, hey, I've been really blessed by the I Am Matthew podcast. And I would really appreciate if you would share this with others so that I can get that so that I get they may get the same blessing that I do. Okay? We're starting to share the word. Actually, right now, as we speak, one of our board directors is at a meeting, and he's sharing the gospel with a group of guys that I think would really enjoy this message. And I'm really hoping that we're going to have some more guys added to our first discipleship. And so, again, and if you do all of these things, and the next thing I could really ask you to do is just pray. Pray for this ministry. Pray for me. I have been under a lot of attack right now. I have been, sometimes I feel like I'm a little sluggish in the things that I do. I feel like I'm not giving my all, so to speak. And I want to give him my all. I want to be everything. I want to do all that I can for him. But I realize that ultimately a lot of the stuff isn't me, it's all him. But I want to be faithful in the things that I can do, And that kind of brings me to what I want to talk about. So again, I know that a lot of people that listen, and thank you for listening. Even though you go to my church, I still thank you for listening. I am so blessed. Every time that I had a lady, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, she asked for the podcast email. She wanted to start listening to the podcast. So I sent her a text message that had the link for the Spotify and man, I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that people want to check it out. I really am. I'm just so humbled. I'm so honored that my words, that people want to check it out. They want to listen. They want to support. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to each and every one of you. I've said that. But one thing that happened this last Sunday, and this is where I want to get into. This is where we're going to build off of. So like I said, you guys been to it. If you guys go to Life Point, if you don't, then you don't know what happened. And so let me explain it to you. So one of our ladies that she does worship for us often, she talked about a verse. So at our church, we're going through the reading plan and we're going through Matthew. And this past week, she had been reading in Matthew 2. And that's talking about when the wise men visit Jesus. And she talked about the fact that, she wanted to be real, she wanted to be honest, that when she read about the wise men bringing him these gifts, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. Now, if you don't know anything about that stuff, well, of course, if you think about gold is expensive. Back in those days, the frankincense and the myrrh were also considered very high-pricey items. And these three wise men gave these gifts to a baby. To the Lord Jesus, yes, but to a baby. And what she said, it really struck me. She talked about the fact that these men gave these expensive gifts to the Lord that hadn't done anything yet. They gave these gifts on, and I love she used this word, they gave these gifts on hope. On the hope of what this child would do, of the hope of what Jesus would do. He hadn't lifted a single finger yet. He couldn't. He was a baby. He couldn't. I mean, I'm sure he could. With him being fully God, I'm sure he could, but he allowed himself to be in the presence as a child, as a baby. And I thought about that. Sometimes I get so wrapped up in the things that I would love the Lord to move in my life. And it brought me back to this question, that if Jesus did nothing else for me, if from now on nothing else went right in my life, is he still worthy of my praise? I want to ask you that same question. If Jesus did nothing else besides save your soul, and he did nothing else for the rest of your life that was beneficial to you, is he still worthy of your praise? I'm going to tell you the answer, and the answer is absolutely. And that's hard. That's really hard, but you got to think about what these wise men did. These wise men presented their gifts to the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and he had done nothing yet in their life. He believed. Now, ultimately, I guarantee you these three wise men are in heaven because I believe they put their faith, they showed it. They took their earthly items, these things that people would consider wealthy gifts, and gave them to a baby who is laying in a manger. So, you think about that. He went in there and they had nothing. And these three guys gave their best to the Lord. Do you give your best to the Lord? I know I don't. I know I don't all the time. I try. There's times where I feel like I do. I feel like I do give my best. But there are times when I'm being honest that I give my leftovers. And, again, that's why her message on Sunday, it really convicted me. It really got me thinking that, you know what? I really need to spend a lot more time with the Lord, because sometimes I feel like I'm not giving him my best. And then she also mentioned the shepherds. The shepherds that left their best treasures in the field, they left everything that was important to them to come and see the king. And sometimes I don't do that either. Do you? Do you leave what's important to you, what you feel like is very important to you? Would you lay that down and leave it in the middle of a field where it could be taken, stolen, destroyed, and go and offer your best to the king? I think about that, and honestly, I feel like there's some people I feel like are really close to that, and I feel like that's a very hard hill to climb, because when we really think about it, a lot of us are attached to our stuff. Let's just be perfectly honest. A lot of us are attached to ourselves. It's hard to give our best to someone who has done nothing for us. I had this conversation with somebody the other day that he had gotten a gift, and instead of sharing with his coworker, he gave it to, a friend of his. And him and his coworker don't get along very well. And he was like, "Well, why should I give that to him? He didn't deserve it." And I turned to him and I reminded him, Jesus gave you a gift that you didn't deserve either. But you know what? I have to remind myself of that. I sometimes get in that mindset of, why should I do that? They didn't deserve it. And the fact of the matter is that I didn't deserve the gift that I was given either. And that knocks me on my knees, because I think about that, and the fact is that all too often do I do that I don't bring my best, and that best may be laying it down in front of a child that has done nothing to deserve it, but they're worthy of it. I miss that a lot. But I'm trying. I'm working on things. One thing I wanted to kind of share with you guys too is, I'm honestly in the process. I've told you guys that one of the things that I struggle with is nicotine. I struggle with that. When I was a kid, I want to say 15, 16 years old is when I started smoking. And it's been an off and on battle since. But I feel like this is the time. I stopped smoking cigarettes because I knew that, oh man, it just made me feel horrible in my lungs. And so I went to what they're called ons, these little pouches that you put underneath your lip, and it's just nicotine. There's no harmful chemicals. It fed the nicotine, and it wasn't like the gum. I hated doing the gum because I'm a gum chewer, and everybody who's been around me that when I've had gum in my mouth knows I'm a gum chewer because it drives them crazy. But it would make me sick because of how quick I'd chew it. Well, this was good because it would just allow it to naturally flow into my system. But I've gotten to the point where it's like, this needs to be done too. And so actually, honestly, as I sit here, I have a nicotine patch on my arm. I am in the process of quitting nicotine. And it hasn't been easy. However, it's different. It's definitely been different. I haven't had near the mood swings that I used to have whenever I would try and quit. I still have the mouth cravings where I have to chew on gum, which is, again, why people are getting annoyed with me. Or I got cinnamon mints, just to have something in my mouth, so that way I'm not, craving having the pouch in my mouth. Or, it's sometimes a lot of people don't know it, but it is a mouth thing. But I say all that to say this, that I want to start giving God my best. I want to give you guys my best. I do have to remember this. I have to remember that when I'm giving my gift to Jesus, this is part of my gift. Whenever I share with you, this is part of me giving my gift, giving my best to Jesus. Jesus has asked me to share. I'm sharing. And I have to remember to give my best. And so I want to do my best. And, and I want to do my best for you guys. And I want to walk out the things that I'm saying. And I don't get it right. We've talked about a lot of things. This is episode 42. We have talked about a lot of things. And I'm promising you, I don't get all of that right all of the time. I'm not perfect. And a lot of stuff I've kind of went back to struggling with. And nothing serious, but, like the whole, we talked a long time ago about waking up and the first thing in the morning before you do anything is get into the Word with God. And that's been a real struggle for the past couple weeks. And I have to keep remembering myself, people have told me that when you start a ministry that you have to be prepared because the enemy's going to try and knock you off your game, and I totally believe it. But then I sit here just like now. This is another one of those, I don't have any prompts, I don't have any thing really written down of what I wanted to tell you. This is really coming from my heart right here, right now. This is Tuesday night, December 3rd. This is going to get posted tomorrow, and I'm just sharing my heart with you. And thing is that God, even when we're faithless, and I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, even when we're faithless, God is still faithful because he cannot deny himself. And I am so thankful for that. I am so thankful that when I don't give my best, when I don't do what God deserves, God gives me what I don't deserve. God gives me grace. I am so thankful for grace. You know what? That is what the promise, that's what they had the hope of. That's what the wise men had the hope of. That's what the shepherds had the hope of. They had the hope of grace. They had the hope that the Savior was here. He was here to make everything new. And I'm so thankful. I don't know why this popped in my head. This is just totally off topic. This is something that came into my head Sunday while the message was being preached. I thought about this. Do you realize that Jesus came at just the right time? There's been times where I was thinking, man, he could have came a lot later. He could have been here in our time. He could have came. Why did he have to come then? And I think this ties into the whole Jewish sacrifices, Jewish laws. I believe Jesus came at this time because God knew what was about to happen in AD 70, which was the destruction of the last temple. The temple has not been rebuilt since AD 70, which means all the Old Testament laws, all the ways of how did the Jewish people right their sins with God? They sacrificed animals, and not just anywhere, but in the temple. Now that temple's gone. So God is like, look, I had a plan. I had a plan from the beginning. The plan from the beginning was to send my son. I'm going to send him right before the last covenant ends, or the covenant before is completely annihilated. They can't even complete the old covenant. And I thought about that, and I thought it was, again, it's God gave us his best, even when we didn't deserve it. Think about it. He gave us his best, and what did we do to the Lord of glory? We crucified him. We took him up a hill, and we nailed nails in his hands. We put a crown of thorns on him. We beat him until he couldn't barely even walk or breathe. And then we finished him off on a cross. And I say we because our sin did that. You realize that, right? When you sin, that's what you're doing. We had a long time ago, whenever I was attending Stillwater, we had this he was talking about Jesus, and it was basically every time that we sin, we are putting another hammer nail into Jesus. We're putting another whip across his back. It was just one more thing he had to die for. And man, I think if I could keep that on the forefront of my mind, I think it would be a whole lot easier not to sin. But I do, and I still struggle with a lot of things, but glory be to God. I know God's gonna work it through with me, because he hasn't given up on me. I see where I've been, I know where I'm going, and all I can think of right now is that I want to offer my best. Do you want to offer your best? This is getting to be the Christmas season, okay? And what does that mean? What does that mean for us as Christians? We are getting ready to celebrate the birth of Christ. Now, I'll probably spend an episode where we're going to talk about some Christmas stuff, some stuff that really, honestly, when I was in prison, I struggled with, and we're gonna talk about that on the episodes. But I want you to understand that this is the time where we can really show what Christ means for us. And I want you to realize it's not about It's not about the gifts we give. It's about the gift that God has given us. Okay? But that's I think what embodies the holiday spirit is because of what Christ has done for you, what are you going to do for others? I want you to really think about that, because there's a lot of us, especially in this country, in the United States of America, we are blessed. There are people all over this world that aren't as blessed. It's really sad. I'm gonna go way off topic, and we might make this a little longer, but that's okay. But because this just got brought up in my mind, and I really, really want to address this. When you go to Christian concert, we just went to a Christian concert. We talked about it, the Crowder concert, okay? And every Christian concert, I'm just warning you, if you ever go to a Christian concert, it's amazing. And I want you to know that they do this. And I think this is also amazing. They normally do a sponsor the child type program, okay? So World Vision, I can't think of the others. But basically, where they talk about the children in other areas and they want you to sponsor them. I remember a while back, a brother had come up to me and said, man, it was another concert him and I had both been to. He's like, man, I really enjoyed that concert. Wasn't much on that sponsoring a child stuff. I feel like they already took my money for the ticket. Now they're trying to take my money with that. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, that's a lot for you to say. When you live in the United States of America, you're blessed. You have clean water. You have food. You have a house. You can afford to do the things that you want to do. You can afford to go to a concert. And you can't, for once, think about a child all the way across the globe. I want you to know, I don't participate in it just because of my past. I don't participate in it. But my wife and my daughter sponsor a child. You know what? And there's times that we're struggling, but one thing that we're going to do that we want to take care of, my wife and my daughter want to take care of that child. And when that girl grows up, I'm going to encourage her to do it again, to sponsor another one. Because guess what? We are not the only people in this world. It's easy to sit in a rock, turn off our television, go and use the bathroom breaks at the concerts when they start talking about the children overseas. That's not giving our best gift. That's not giving our best gift. I'm going to speak it right now. If you have the ability to sponsor a child, let's say I'm going to tell you how I feel about I feel about this. If you're sitting there and say, "Man, I could donate the $30 a month to the I Am Matthew Ministries, or I could give the $30 a month to sponsor a child," you want to know what I want to tell you? Sponsor that child. Sponsor that child. Because guess what? There are going to be other people that can do both or want to do both. And I'm telling you, I would rather you take your money and go sponsor a child and to let that child know that they're loved and let that child know that they have food and clothing and that they're being provided for and they can go and get special things and take care of. Sponsor the child. That's how passionate I feel about this. I went there last Sunday and it broke my heart because I knew we couldn't afford another one. I knew that we couldn't. I told my wife, I said, if we won that 541, I think is Mega Millions right now, $541 million, guess what? There would be a lot of kids overseas all of a sudden had sponsors. That's how I feel about that. Money is just money. People's lives are at stake. And the thing is those people, they're not only getting food, they're not only getting an education, they're getting shared the love of Christ. These people are learning about Christ because how will they know unless someone goes? Really? How will they know unless someone goes and shares the message with them? Well, you got to think about all the ways that we're blessed and we need to give our best, even in that situation where that child has done nothing for us. Are we still going to give our best to the Lord Jesus? I want you to think about that. It's starting to be the holiday seasons. How can I be a blessing to others? How can I give my best to somebody that maybe doesn't deserve it, that could never repay that kindness? How am I going to give my best? Because Jesus said, when you do it for one of the least of these, you do it for me. I want to serve I want to serve the Lord Jesus in that way. So I want to end it with this. If Jesus did nothing else for you, is he still worthy of the best? Guys, I want to thank you for checking out this podcast. I really hope it encouraged you. I'm sorry if I stepped on toes, but guess what? Sometimes we need our toes stepped on a little bit. Again, I want to thank you for listening. Go check out the social media, the website. Again, follow us. We just want to get this message out to people and just continue to look for updates of the ministry. And if you can donate, go to their GoFundMe page. I'll post that in the link in the episode description. I love you guys. Have a great week, and God bless. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Please email us at iammatthewpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if this has changed your life, what you liked about the program, how we can make it better. But most importantly, keep putting God first, live for Him, and watch Him move in your life.